Hey, Duncan.
Can you hear me all right?
I can. Can you hear me okay?
I sure can. Thank you.
Awesome. Aurelia and Kevin as co-presenters.
I would absolutely love to, but I can't.
Got
Um,
it.
let's see what the options are. I don't actually have admin access here. Let me take a look.
Oh, let's see.
Apologies to those watching. You're seeing the sausage being made right now. We're all pretty well new to hop in, so trying to do our best here. If we can't, then I would very much imagine that Timothy and or Ross can help us with that.
Cool. Let's see. All right.
All right, we've got Aurelia coming in here.
Ah, perfect.
Hello.
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 So if Aurelia
And
is here, then presumably we will be joined by your colleagues soon enough.
let's see. All right. Welcome to everybody who's just joining us. Hey,
There we go.
Kevin.
Hey, Kevin.
Hey, there we go.
The gang's all
Perfect.
here. Fantastic.
All right. Cool. Well, we'll kind of kick it off. I think we have 30 minutes. Is that right, Duncan?
Yeah, give or take. Give or take.
All right, cool. Well, we'll probably leave a bunch of room for some questions at the end, and we can kind of go from there.
Yeah.
Let's make this, I think we can do, yeah, chat specific to this section in Hopin. So feel free, everyone who's in the session, just like jump in and like let's make this interactive. So
Please
we
do.
might
Please do.
ask some questions like the whole time. Feel free to ask those or respond to those questions in Slack or in, I was going to say Slack, because I'm so used to that, but in the chat.
Or
And
Teams. We also accept
yeah,
Teams messages.
sure. And then jump in with any questions kind of throughout the presentation. We'll make sure we're monitoring the chat, and we can jump right in.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I want to open things up here with a question about a bit about your company, Jane. What does it do, and what are your roles within it?
Yeah. So Jane is. Are we gonna? Just curious, Duncan. Are we gonna share slide? Do you want me to share slides, or are we good to just kind of
I
continue
think we can
through?
just talk right now. I
Okay.
would love to do
Cool.
the slide thing, but frankly, I don't know if Hopin can support it all that well. We can try
Okay.
it, but no guarantees.
Sounds good. We'll jump into slides in a
Yeah, yeah.
second then. So Jane is an online platform for health and wellness practitioners. It makes it simple to book, chart, schedule, bill, and get paid. We primarily focus on what we call allied health professionals. So that's chiropractors, acupuncturists, massage therapists, physiotherapists. And we support a little over 15,000 customers worldwide, primarily in Canada, the United States, the UK, and Australia. Jane is about 165 people right now. And yeah, I'll pass it over to Aurelia and Kevin to introduce themselves.
Did you want to go first, Kevin, or should I?
All you.
Alrighty. Cool. Well, I'm Aurelia, and I've been working at Jane for about 2.5 years now. And I actually started first in customer support, and then I've been doing product management for the last year or so and have been really enjoying it. And then before that, I actually used to work as an admin staff person at a clinic. So one of the local clinics here that did massage, acupuncture, kind of the works. And that's how I first heard of Jane. And that's led me to where I am now. And yeah, I guess I'm responsible for looking over kind of the general billing and reporting aspects of the system. I actually work quite closely with Kevin and sort of just, things like generating invoices, bookkeeping, payment collection, all that sort of fun thing.
And hey, everyone, my name's Kevin. I've been at Jane for, I guess, just over 3 years now. It was 3 years on Saturday. I'm the portfolio owner for the payments area. You'll hear us use the term portfolio owner. I'd say it's synonymous with project manager. Yeah, I do. I want to say all things external credit card payments. So working with our payments partners and working closely with Aurelia to make sure everyone can actually record and log those payments in Jane as well.
And I'm Mark. I lead the product team at Jane. So I work closely with all of the product team across all of the different product areas. Yeah, that's a little bit about us. I'm sure, like, if you've ever booked a massage therapy appointment or a physio appointment or anything like that in Vancouver, chances are you've used Jane at some point. So it's that's kind of what we do.
Yeah, I've used the product. Who should I send bug reports to?
You can send those right to me, Duncan.
Okay, fantastic. Very good.
Yeah.
How can I send them with a high priority? Is there like a flag I can use? I don't know. So the product team at Jane, how is it structured? How do you divide it out? And kind of, you've spoken to it a little bit, but can you go into more detail on what your different areas are really focusing on?
Yeah, let me pass this one off to Kevin.
Mark, if you can hear us, we can't hear you right now.
I'm just going to see if I can share my screen just to give Kevin a little visual.
Yes, we can. Fantastic.
All right, cool. Okay, cool. I will pass this part off to Kevin.
Perfect. So we just have one person that runs all of product, and that's it. Pretty simple. Any questions?
No, let's continue.
No. Whew, okay. So I want to start with this slide. This is how we started with product when I first joined Jane 3 years ago. Mark had mentioned that we're at about 165 people right now. A couple years ago, we were just at 20 people. So I guess our product department was really just one of our co-founders. These days, at 165 people, our product department looks a little bit like this. So Aurelia and I mentioned that we are portfolio owners for specific areas. I look after the payments area. Her focus is the billing and reporting area. And of course, we do work quite closely with each other. We call these kind of our problem areas. And it allows us to just really focus in on those problems, really obsess over those specific areas. So we have such other areas like scheduling. So obviously, you want to schedule in your patients efficiently. We have many different teams just for regional insurance. Canadian insurance, a little bit complicated. US insurance, very complicated. And for things like analytics, we do need some specialized knowledge there. We're also supported by a couple teams that you can see on the lower part of the graph, or the graphic. We have one team that just obsesses over the entire onboarding experience. So making sure everyone can use Jane, to the fullest extent right when they start up. We also have our design team, making sure Jane feels consistent across all these different portfolio areas and features. And of course, we're underpinned by our platform infrastructure and security teams. We need Jane running, almost 100% of the time. And of course, security is top of mind for us as well, since we are dealing with sensitive information. Mm-hmm. One thing you might notice here is, I guess each different portfolio team does have one of a person like myself, a portfolio owner. We have a small team of developers also focusing on that one area, and some shared design and QA team members. This is kind of how we gather all of the signals from our customers about what we should build next and how we can improve their workflow. We do this in conjunction with our support team, who obviously is the first line of defense or attack with our various customers. And that's actually it. We don't have anyone like a sales team or anything like that, which is, from what I've heard, quite different than most companies.
I like the idea of a customer defense, by the way. Please continue with that
idea. Yeah, so like I said, we don't have a sales team. About 74% of our customers are actually referrals from existing Jane customers. A high percentage of that is actually named referrals. They've actually told us the exact practitioner who told them, Jane is a great experience, you should switch over. We also don't do anything like contracts or anything like that. We want to provide just that great experience without locking anyone into a contract. That's why we have all these different teams obsessing over those features, making sure every part of Jane just gives a great, coherent, fantastic experience. And for a little bit more on how these portfolio teams work, I'm going to throw it over to Mark.
Nice. I think it's it's fascinating. I previously to Jane, I came from a company called Segment where we were totally B2B, large company focused. Moving to Jane where we have no sales team members, everything has to be as efficient as possible, and our customers just have to be able to kind of jump in, understand the product, because anybody can sign up at any time of the day and needs to be able to be turned into a customer champion as quickly as possible. So it's kind of a just representation here of the structure that we have within Jane is kind of a representation of those goals of ours on the product side.
So within your product teams, what are the kind of skills and capabilities that your members really need to have?
Yeah, so this is super interesting because I think we work maybe a little bit differently than a typical product organization. We do what's called like a full stack PM model. So really the PMs at Jane, and you'll hear us call PMs portfolio owners as well. They're kind of like interchangeable at Jane. But the way that the product team works at Jane is really being involved at every stage of the funnel. So they're involved at the ideation stage, writing product briefs, soliciting inputs from customers and support, doing roadmap development, prioritizing, and doing customer development. They work with the developers pretty directly at the execution stage. So when a project goes into development, they're working really closely with them. They work on unblocking developers. They get their hands dirty with QA testing and iterating on those changes while it's in development. They're also involved at the release stage, so coordinating with content, marketing. They work customer support on training. You'll even see the PMs do and host webinars. And kind of go through the full stack. And then they work on the feedback stage. So like gathering that feedback, informing future decisions, and bringing that back into the ideation stage. So really, I think what's unique about this model is just like there isn't a stage of the product development process that a PM at Jane is not involved in. It can sometimes lead to it being a lot for the PM, but I think it's interesting to figure out kind of like how much value we can get and how much information and context we can get from being involved at all of the stages. So I'm curious to put the question to Aurelia and Kevin, like what do you like and dislike about being a full stack PM?
Well, I mean, I echo a lot of that sentiment. It's really fulfilling to just see, a project go from the idea stage and then be able to put just provide some input through the design, the development, and then see it all the way to when it gets into the hands of our customers. And it's definitely not in like a micromanagey way. It's more of just we're here if you need us sort of way for the later parts. So that's really, I just find it quite fulfilling. And then, I mean, the only potentially downside is it just keeps us busy. So we're always, we've got our hands full, but I think it's worth it. It really makes sure that we're building the right thing.
Yeah, I would say I've never been bored working at Jane. There's always something to do, and depending on how you're feeling that day, maybe you can hammer out a couple product briefs and really outline some future features. Maybe some days there's a great conversation, say the Jane user Facebook community that you want to engage with and really get involved with. There's always something different that you can do, and will still always bring in value to Jane as a whole.
And so we've got some questions coming in from some of the audience members here. So as Mark is calling out in the chat, one of your questions actually going to be part of our structure here. So if you just hold for a couple minutes, we can get to that one. I'd say let's hold the questions till the end. There's going to be a Q&A portion. We want to get through the majority of what we're covering here, but join the Q&A later and we can cover more of your more questions, if that makes sense to everybody. So I would ask, how do you collaborate in your team? Like, what are you doing within your product circle, and what are you doing with others across the organization? Does it work well for you? And yeah, can you just share a bit more about that side of things, Mark?
Yeah, I think Kevin's also going to chat on this one, since Kevin is I think the PM at Jane who works with probably the most broad range of teams at the company. So I'll let him take it.
Yeah, with us, we have a fairly flat structure. There's no, having to go through your manager to talk to a director or anything like that. Everyone's free to and encouraged to, chat with everyone to deliver the best experience for our customers. It's both a blessing and a curse that I get to work with some third parties as well, our integration partners, which might have somewhat different values and different styles of work, which can be somewhat of a challenge, but also these are challenges, obviously, we're up for. Some of the other things, we get to do, I do work quite closely with the marketing and content team. I specifically work with payments, credit card payments, anything that deals with money, kind of has a heightened sense of urgency, and maybe some people might be a little scared to, I'm going to say, just mess it up. We do need some rock solid content that I work closely with the marketing team on. Of course, as a product manager, also working closely with our development team, as well as our design teams to make sure that we are developing the right things and that they are, function as we hope they would. Like I said earlier as well, we don't have a sales team or anything, so I also collaborate really frequently with our support team as well as directly with our customers. They're where we get the signals of, what we should build or what we need to change to make sure their workflows can be replicated in Jane, and Jane's workflows work for them. Which is, I want to say, also a challenge at times, just due to the varied nature of our customer base. A massage therapist in BC has completely different requirements than one in Ontario, who has very different ones from someone located in the US. So even someone doing a very similar profession has very, very different needs.
And so let's actually, I'm going to do two things at once here. So I'm going to open it up to the audience here. Share in the chat how, based on what you've heard, how is this align with your own experience at your product roles or elsewhere in terms of how your team collaborates across the organization and amongst each other. But while we get some of those responses coming into the chat, I'd actually like to pick up on your last point there, Kevin, and let's talk about how you learn about customer needs. So let's get into the discovery side of things. And can you share a bit more about what your process at Jane is for figuring out what your customers actually need to do?
For sure. There's a couple different ways I do it. One of the biggest ones is we have a publicly available feature request board where any Jane user can request a new feature or a new workflow, as well as upvote and comment on a number of other feature requests. We do have quite a lot. Like I said, we have a very varied customer base, but I do love to engage with our customers there. Another one is just working with our support team. We do have some specialists on our support team that just work with our payment partners. Just working closely with them, seeing what the trends are, what people are asking, what we maybe need to change within Jane, what documentation we need to generate, and just overall how we can improve their payment workflows.
And then kind of dovetailing onto that, what are the actual sort of decision-making factors that go into your feature direction? Specifically, like, what are the kind of things that you're looking for? What are the indicators that says we should build this but not build that?
I think that one we'll touch on in the next slide, but I think the actually, why don't I just move it through? And we can touch on maybe this one, and then we can go back to back one. But I think like when we decide what to build, there's a few things that factor into this. Like the first one is the mission. So our mission as a company is to help the helpers. They're often kind of forgotten in terms of providing healthcare and help to the patients that need them. And then from there, we break it down into the strategy. So for us, our strategy is around growing more happier customers. And then that breaks down into how we kind of think about the next year. So we break our strategy down into disciplines and geographies. So for example, last year, we said we have to get to a product market fit with our US chiropractors. They're starting to use Jane. They are not maybe having some of the best experience. So we need to get them to a point where they're able to become advocates and champions of Jane. So Gotta Fix was US Chiros last year. And then we were starting to think about Canadian mental health as a discipline that we wanted to go after. And then starting to think about from last year has really fed into this year's Gotta Fix. So we started to see an acceleration of our Canadian mental health practitioners on Jane last year. That fed into this year as a, hey, this is the discipline and group that we need to focus on this year. And then the third is just like focusing entirely on simplicity. Because of our self-service nature in Jane, all of our customers can sign up and they need to become successful so that they can become advocates, because that's really our primary growth channel. And so from there, simplicity is just kind of that underpinning of strategy across the board, in that we need to make everything as easy as possible for our customers. And then we break it down to problems per portfolio down from there, and that's kind of the guidance that we give the portfolio teams, and they create briefs from that. And then we break those down into 6-week cycles, and those are kind of where the key results and our objectives come in. And then those break down into specific measurable products that we want to move forward. So Aurelia can talk a little bit about like how this works from like a very tangible perspective, with kind of some recent work that she did in kind of taking the strategy and actually implementing it into a decision-making criteria of how we decide what to build.
Yeah, I'd be happy to walk through just one of the examples from earlier this year. So as Mark was mentioning, we're sort of focusing on these different geographies or demographics, and one of them is the Canadian mental health market. So what I personally find helpful, sometimes you're kind of competing between, you have this higher level mission, but you also have all these just different signals coming up at you. So what I did in this case was sort of just start off with just the basics and provide some background on who are we trying to help, and a little description about, what characteristics make up Canadian mental health, that market. So for example, this is kind of a summary of what I put together, but, they're maybe the first time using an EHR system, they don't tend to be power users, but they are also kind of have higher expectations of integration, like an integrated software like Jane, because, they might have been working with Google Calendar for their scheduling, and then also just a Word document for their notes. So they want something integrated and easy to use, which kind of touches upon the simplicity. But they're really concerned with, patient privacy, and in general just need some flexibility because unlike some of our other users, they kind of have more complex billing needs. And this is because they work with like couples or families often. So we have to find ways to split the bill and manage kind of relationships. So it's kind of a fun puzzle to work through. And then from there, once you kind of have that kind of theme in mind, you can break it down into kind of the different, I guess, like different categories of problems. So we sort of identified that a lot of the feature requests that we were getting were either related to privacy or the complex billing needs or maybe flexible pricing. So that kind of, those act as our like beacons towards what we kind of want to focus on and prioritize fixing. And then from there, kind of as the pyramid shows, you can break that into smaller projects. So in the confidentiality section, you know, maybe we need to focus on our permissions or offer a secure download for some of our documents. So you can sort of break it down that way, and then rinse and repeat for some of the other just focuses that the company is working on.
No, thanks, Aurelia, for sharing that. I'm just looking at the time here. I checked my records, and it seems like we may actually only have 2 minutes left. So just in case, I want to cover this one because it's good to end on a positive note, and then we can go back to the negative stuff if we have time. So what are you excited about going into 21? What are the things that make you go, ooh, good job, I get to do this now?
I'll let you two cover it first, and I'll try and answer some of these questions in chat while you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mark.
I can go first this time, Aurelia.
Perfect.
2020, in my specific portfolio area, we built a strong, I want to say, foundation. We launched a physical credit card terminal. Maybe not the best time to launch a physical product that you have to use in person. But we did it. It is wildly successful, and we have that strong base. Now we can iterate on that. We can bring some, let's say, without giving away too much, some great, cool next generation payment features on top of that infrastructure that we've built.
Let me just take my notepad out here. Can you tell me more about these cool things that you can't tell me about just yet? What about you, Aurelia?
So I think for the upcoming year, and we've sort of seen this in the past year with just, you know, the pandemic, something we couldn't really predict, but you know, we're just excited to just grow and solve some new problems, especially for the folks who are helping other people. We get to be sort of their allies and make their jobs a little bit easier. And as we know, the healthcare industry is sometimes a little bit more focused on the patient and not so much on the practitioner side of things. So I think it's just a year full of new challenges and puzzles to solve. And I think it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, I think to build on that, I'm really excited. So far, we've been really heavily focused on the practitioner side of things. This year, we're going to start getting into more patient-facing features. So I'm really excited to start getting into that stuff, but also just be able to support the broad, the ever-broadening group of practitioners that we have around the world is going to be a big challenge. So I'm excited to tackle that.
No, that's all fantastic. And I wish you the absolute best of luck when you have to deal with the regulations around talking to patients.
Thanks, Duncan.
I try and be supportive. So we're going to be probably kicked out of this momentarily. And the prize draw is happening right now. We didn't get to all of the questions that we had, and I apologize for that. We didn't get to all the things that you prepared for this. So perhaps I don't know how we can handle this, but if you want to maybe share your slides afterwards, it might give us some sense of the areas we can fill in, just so people on the Product BC community can at least benefit from what you prepared in advance here.
For sure. You can also message us on Slack, on the Product BC Slack, and we can answer any questions there as well.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, folks. So I'd say we should head back over to the prize draw so that we can get our prizes drawn. Surprise.
Thanks, everybody.
Fantastic. Thanks, everybody, for being here with us today. Kevin, Aurelia, thank you so much for all of your in-depth information. And again, when it comes to dealing with patients, I'm rooting for you.
Thanks, Duncan. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Duncan.
See you, folks.